They don't want that higher consciousness out there. They want enslavement. So, what's got to go?
Control factor.
It's a control factor, right. They want all the resources that are on the planets, right. So those become very specific things that they're after, and we're in the way. The Dracos will do something totally unexpected, and that becomes the problem. They've witnessed that over and over again. And so they don't want to put whole civilizations at risk if they don't have to.
Today on Cosmic Disclosure, we are joined by Victoria Whitney, a doctor of science and a retired member of the Department of Defense, United States Navy. Who are these other influential extraterrestrials on our governments?
We have the Draconian presence, and working for them are several reptoid species, and they say that they send them here, to make sure that operations are going the way they're supposed to go. And what I would say when somebody says operations, that has meaning to me that they've infiltrated and that they're, they have an agenda that they're carrying through. But those are the two main characters that we're seeing. Now we have these serpents that we understand to have allied with the Draconians. And you got to remember that these two entities have always been enemies.
Yeah, they can't stand each other.
They can't stand each other, right. But there has to be something that has caused them to say, wait, we'll put aside our differences and come together. There's something far greater to be gained from this. So this is what's happened, is they've allied themselves. And of course, the serpents have brought a lot of technology that Draconians had not been exposed to yet, using dark matter, and it's creating new weapons, things like that. So this will be something that, the universe has not really seen up to this point. So there's some advantage that's occurring between that. So does that mean that we're going to start getting an influence from the serpents here? We had it before in our history, because we talk about the Nagas. So there were serpents here. What happened to them, right? Clearly, somebody decided they needed to go because of their influence. And so, here we are. We've had the Draconians influencing, the elites that are here. We have reptoids that are working for the Draconians to further work through that influence. And now we're going to add serpents to that. And so I don't know where that's going to go. I just rely on what they tell us. And they're saying that no good will come of this. At some point, are all the governments laced with this? Yeah. This is huge for us. And this isn't the first time this happened in history.
That's right.
Right. I mean, if you want to control something, there's only several different ways you can do that. And that's either, from the top down, which means they have to be infiltrated in the government, or you do it from a biological aspect, which means that they would affect, water sources and food sources. I mean, without those things, we're nothing. Right. So you want to control something. There's only a couple of different ways in which they would do that. But right now, what they've done is they've, infiltrated governments. They're putting policies in place that suit them, not suit us. So ultimately they have a plan, right? And everybody says, well, what's that plan? And, you're going to hear a variety of different things. People will say, oh, it's the New World Order. But I think it's many things. I don't think it's just that. I think that, given what the rest of the, greater cosmic communities have talked about happening in the cosmos, I think there's many different things at work here. I think it's a matter of having to change. They don't want that higher consciousness out there. They want enslavement. So, what's got to go?
Control factor.
It's a control factor, right. They want all the resources that are on the planets, right. So those become very specific things that they're after, and we're in the way.
We are, yeah.
Right.
Well, you mentioned the Pleiadians and the Orions are watching us and kind of a way helping us, looking after us. How do they feel about this other threat?
Well, it's interesting. Remember, they're not interventionists.
Right.
That's not what they want to be. If they knew that they could come and make a difference without causing a larger problem, I think that they would have done that already. I think what they think is that if we can undermine, because basically that's what they're doing, is undermining the process. They're coming in and telepathically reaching out to people and causing them to, consider things and become more aware, right? And so what I think they're looking at is that strength in numbers, right? That we will begin to come together as a planet, and we will begin to say, wait a minute, something else is going on here, and stand up against it. I think it's a subtle difference, but I think because they can't just come in and, knock the door down, right?
Right.
Because there's consequences for it at a greater level. Remember, they have to maintain peace for many, many civilizations out there through the Federation, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so does that put them all at risk? Yes. And so we're one planet against many. And so
Well, can they interact with the Dracos behind the scenes that we don't know about?
well, and they do to a degree. I mean, they have fleet services, right?
Right.
And we here we have this, they've told us there's a big cruiser sitting out behind our moon that's protecting our backs, right? So what does that mean? They're just going to watch them come in and do something? No, if need be, they will interact with them. But the problem is that, they also have the Dracos will do something totally unexpected. And that becomes the problem. They've witnessed that over and over again. And so they don't want to put whole civilizations at risk if they don't have to. So, you're playing that long-term game right now of trying to placate and yet undermine over here. And so it's really a strategy that's being played out. They don't want to be, I had a 3-week period where I didn't hear from Wickma. Of course, I'm concerned, right? Because he's been in my ear every single day. And suddenly another Pleiadian came and said he has been taken by the Draconians because they knew that he was playing this game, right? And so fortunately he was rescued from that. But they're willing to do anything as long as they can keep their agenda.
All right, Saren, I've got to ask the obvious question here. Reptilians, Draconians, Serpent alliances. I mean, it's pushing it, right? Because once you say reptilian agenda, people stop hearing the detail and just hear the word reptilian, and then we get the memes. So from your perspective, can you give us some clarity on what has become quite a taboo subject?
Humans are funny. You will accept my archetype quite easily. The gray alien, large eyes, telepathic. It's excellent branding, but mention reptilian beings and suddenly everyone becomes a hardened skeptic and starts pointing fingers.
Yeah, you got a point, actually.
Which is odd, because your own history is full of serpent gods, dragon figures, underworld intelligences, and ruling bloodline myths. The symbol keeps returning. That does not prove the claim, of course, but it does suggest the image has deep roots in human memory. And this is where someone like Jacques Vallée becomes useful, because he urged people not to get trapped by the costume of the phenomenon. Whether it appears as angels, fae, greys, or reptilian beings, the more interesting question is, what is the intelligence behind the mask? And why does it keep using forms that provoke fear and fascination?
Yeah, what you said.
They're here to do studies, learn about the planet or whatever the case may be. They're also trying to insert these awarenesses in there. And so it isn't just us that they inserted an awareness into when they came here. I mean, this is going out globally. But, it's like everything else. Is somebody paying attention and hearing the message, right? And what I hope is that, people watching this, they'll start going, oh, wait a minute. I'm already aware because I'm watching these episodes, right?
Right.
And so I should start paying more attention to what's coming through. Those aren't just random thoughts coming in. These are things that they're supplanting into by telepathy into our minds so that we will become more aware. So what I hope is that people will start paying more attention to that. What can I do? Well, just by your energy alone, adding to that increases that awareness. And that's really the undermining effect, is that when suddenly you wake up and, you started out with 2 people and all of a sudden it's 10,000 people, right? That's really what starts undermining those agendas that are happening. And they begin to see, what's happening. We just saw a news article where laws were beginning to change, right?
Right, yeah.
And it is that undermining effect that has everything to do with making that happen. So, like I say, here's your opportunity, right? You're already watching the episodes, so the awareness is there, higher consciousness, right? You just need to take it to the next step and start becoming aware that they are trying, especially the Arcturians, they are trying to telepathically get through to us and say, this is what you need to do. This is the way you need to think. This is the next step.
In light of what you just described, what is the potential of humanity right now?
Well, that's the one thing each of the members of the conclave said, is that we have so much potential that we're not aware of. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But the thing is that, we're just now becoming aware of, those different things. And so what they're hoping is that, here's the thing, you can learn something really fast and then forget it tomorrow. What they're hoping is that we learn it and then we start to become it, because then once we become it, we own it. And that's really what they're saying, is that you have all the abilities to be just like us and more, but we have to put the work in. And that's the problem, is that a lot of people don't want to put the work in. They don't want to change themselves. They're happy with the way they are, But that's a physical existence here. That isn't part of that greater cosmic community. And so what we need them to realize is that, take that potential, work towards something higher, become a
make
better...
a conscious effort
to
be more aware and change.
Right, become a more enlightened, better version of yourself.
What's interesting now is that the story shifts a bit. It starts with infiltration, hidden control, all the dark stuff, but then it pivots into consciousness, awareness, people waking up, almost like the antidote to the whole thing. It isn't some giant space battle, it's people becoming harder to manipulate. And honestly, that part lands more for me. Because whether you buy every cosmic detail or not, the core idea is familiar. If enough people start questioning the script stops working. Does that feel like the real pressure point, Saren? Not humans versus reptilians exactly, but awareness versus control?
Of course, because if you can guide a civilization's fear, attention, and imagination, you do not need to physically dominate every person in it. You simply keep them fragmented, distracted, and reactive.
That is why a researcher like John Keel is still interesting.
He'll look at the phenomenon less like simple visitors in metalcraft, and more like something that manipulates perception, beliefs, and absurdity itself. So yes, the real contest may not be who has the biggest fleet. It may be who gets to define reality for the human mind. Which, to be fair, humans already rehearse every day on social media.
And so where do I think we're going to be? I think that we're intelligent enough to come together. That's the whole purpose that we've done with Commonwealth, to say we have to unite humanity together. We have to realize that there's something more happening. We have to become part of that greater cosmic community. We have to start learning that there's a knowledge that it should be shared by all of us, not just the select few. We have to understand that technology needs to be shared by all of us, not the select few, right? And that we need to change the way in which we deal with each other. Because what's going to happen when you're standing there and you see another species that, doesn't look like us? How are we going to react, right? We have to quit letting fear and paranoia drive us. And so that's really a lot of that potential that we need to learn now is, how are we going to do that? And we need to come together. We need to start talking about it, So where do I think we're going to go? I think we're going to have a huge awakening. I think that people are going to realize that we do need to get back into the greater cosmic communities. We need to get back to our lineages. We need to have a huge educational awakening in itself, because this is going to be all new territory for us. And I think that really once we realize that, we're going to be a much better species.
Strip away the labels, Draco, Serpent, Federation, Arcturian, whatever, and the challenge still comes back to us. Can people think clearly? Stay calm? Can they stop handing over their minds every time an authority tells them what reality is? Because if the answer is no, then honestly, you wouldn't even need reptilians. Humans could do the job to themselves.
That is the elegantly depressing conclusion. Humans expect the great struggle to arrive with dramatic skies and ancient enemies.
But most control begins in smaller ways. Fear, passivity, tribalism, intellectual laziness.
So whether these beings are literal, symbolic, interdimensional, or some mixture of all three, the practical question remains the same.
Are humans becoming more conscious or merely more programmable?
Want to go deeper? check out Cosmic Disclosure on Gaia, a series exploring secret programs, extraterrestrial contact, and hidden technology.
And while you guys are relaxing, I'll fix this plasma warp drive for my captors.